Alright guys, I've got a 10-minute game here against a player rated 833. Sorry, 883 from Finland. And they've opened with e4. I've got the black pieces and I've played the French e6. Now d5. Okay, we have the advanced variation. And now c5. Get good control over this central space at the cost of some development. Now I'm going to capture on here, so I'm trading a wing pawn for white's d pawn, and now knight to c6 simply hits the queen, so I'm developing a piece with tempo, so the queen's going to have to move and the queen goes all the way back to d1. Okay, so we are in a situation where we have one piece developed each. And now my c-pawn's gone, so I can develop my dark squared bishop, I think. We'll eye down on the f2 square. Again, we're looking at the typical kind of errors that people in the 800 kind of category are likely to be making. So 883. Okay. Now, one thing I notice is if I capture here, the only way for white to recapture is with the f-pawn, and that's going to create some problems because it's really going to open up white's king. So I'm very tempted to do that. Another idea is queen a5. Could just run into c3 blocking. But I think here, so if we exchange bishops, then we're back to one developed piece each. And I think that's okay. I think it's a good use of my bishop's life there to do that. Okay. So we have a hanging pawn on b2 and a hanging pawn there. So if we triangulate those two, then b6, and I can drop my queen onto b6. Just checking for nasties. No nasties. Carry on. Okay, so we're hitting 2 pawns now. Has my opponent done anything wrong yet? Well, arguably, this move, I mean, did they think it through, right? If black captures and I recapture, I've got doubled, isolated pawns on the e-file. Okay, so the queen's moved forward to defend this pawn, but not defending this pawn. So now we play if I capture there. We might have queen here, but that's not good because I've got there. So let's say I capture there. How can white defend the rook? White doesn't have a check at all. So I'm threatening to capture the rook on a1. The queen coming here is a kind of a natural move because the rook defends the knight defends the queen's actually x-ray defending the rook through my queen, but it doesn't do anything about queen c1 check, which would force the king to move to one of these two squares. So let's go ahead and play that. This, I think, is the most natural looking move. The other option as well is to exchange queens there. Okay, we have a resignation. Okay, so let's look through. This is all normal. Advance is normal. I mean, you might say it could be better to develop a piece, and then if black captures, you recapture with a knight, then you've got 2 pieces on the board, right? And that would give, so a knight here, it's in the center. This is the absolute center of the board, right? So a knight on there, we're controlling a lot of dark squares from these two. So all of these dark squares are then being patrolled by that pair of knights, which is pretty cool. So we have then the advance, and that's okay. Now I then, for my third move, I push another pawn because that is simply the way of things with the French. I want to grab central control, and that's an important element of the opening to control the center. Okay, so I've delayed developing my pieces. All my pieces are still at home. Now we have a pawn move, and now we have wing pawn takes central pawn. So And the only way to recapture is with either with a queen or with a knight that's already developed. And each of those has a kind of weakness to it, right? So the queen can be kicked, as we've seen. Moving the knight a second time would be a delay in development. And then that would probably invite bishop to come out here or something like that, okay? So knight hits the queen, queen retreats. And now you would argue that white is actually slightly behind in development because I've moved 2 pawns. And also, they don't have a d pawn, so we've swapped their d pawn for my c pawn. We both have one knight out in the board, and it's my turn. Bishop out. Suddenly black has the lead, right, because of the queen recapture. And these are little things, right, but these are little things that build up. And now this, I think, was an error, because takes, and suddenly the king's looking really exposed. And we've got these central doubled and isolated pawns. Also leaves this open. Now, why? Why has this been left open? Why do I suddenly have a nice queen fork? Well, I think it's because this pawn is in an undefended position. But possibly also simply because of lack of development. Right, the bishop's come out and sacrificed itself off the board and got swapped off. Is there a way for... Yeah, I think this would actually maybe have been a better move. Maybe white didn't spot the fact that I was attacking 2 pawns here. Right, so queen d4 might have been better. White played queen d2, which defended only one of the 2 pawns. Also queen c1 would have defended both pawns. So that is simply an error in not spotting undefended pieces. Okay, so I think, yeah, queen d4 here. Oh no, that wouldn't have worked. Of course, the knight's covering that square. But yeah, queen c1 there would have been okay, and would have avoided this. And then white sees no future. The only reasonable move is queen here, and then I've got queen c1 check, forcing the king off the back rank. Now the king isn't going to castle. I also have potentially 2 attackers on this pawn as well. So you can see how when you play less than solid opening moves, it can quickly, against a player who understands why you play certain opening moves and why you don't, that makes a difference. This was a casual, let's say sloppy opening from white. White knows how to play chess, knows how the pieces move and all that kind of stuff, and clearly knows when they're in big trouble as well. But I think it's just simply a case of not really thinking through, if I do that, what's going to happen, right? So I think there, if I do that, well, black's going to take, okay, and then what am I going to do? Well, I'll capture with my queen, then I walk into a kick, and then I've lost the tempo, and now suddenly I'm behind on development, right? And this also, what's black going to do if I play that? Well, this bishop's undefended, so either the bishop's going to have to move and walk into a pawn kick, right? Or it's going to swap itself off. Okay, if swap itself off. We're not looking 5-6 moves ahead here. We're looking 2 moves ahead, right? Then I have isolated pawns in the middle, and is that a good thing? And how's my king, right? Just simple things like that. So there you go, very quick example, but that's how you beat a player in the 800 to 900 range, 883. So what the players in this kind of grouping, what do they need to be focusing on? Well, I think following opening principles. Simple as that. And also thinking, what if? Candidate moves. If I play move A, what's likely to happen? And is that good for me or better for my opponent? Or if I play move B, what's going to happen? Right? I don't think my opponent in this instance really considered the outcomes of their moves. They just played moves. Okay, that's an idea. Let's play it. It's a move, right? Pretty basic. Okay, well, there you go. If you're in the 800 to 900, that's where you need to be focusing so you can improve. And I'll see you next time.